Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, California Weather Watch. Today's January 12th, and right now we're looking at the visible satellite imagery. You can see the nice snow-capped mountains here on the GOES 18 satellite imagery up across Northern California. There's Mount Shasta right there. You can see some of the fog into some of the river valley areas that they're across Northern California. Not very widespread, however. You can see a little bit of that fog activity, maybe just off to the west of Fresno, but largely clear across the state of California, as you can see. And another thing you'll notice is that we're finally starting to cut down some of the smoke there coming off the Southern California fires, although we are going to continue these offshore winds. They are going to be strong at times as we go through next week, and very dry conditions will remain. But we'll take a look at the extended forecast all the way on into early February to see what kind of potential pattern changes we may have in store here for the west coast of North America. Now, if I scroll back and forth there, if you look really closely, you can see a little bit of a glow from the Palisades fire. This was yesterday afternoon, but that is largely not showing up too much here. It looks like you can actually see the burn scar there from some of the Eaton fire as well. So ugly conditions out there. The fires still are going, and we don't have much containment on these, even on going on in through day 5. So you can see the difficulty in fighting some of these fires. And I think the fatalities are up closer to 16, but not confirmed just yet. Over 40,000 acres burned, 12,300 structures. And if you look at the Palisades, for example, it's only 11% contained even as of right now, going on to day 5. So you can imagine the issues fighting these fires, as they were starting, in just tinderbox conditions with no air support and extremely powerful winds, allowing embers to jump a mile, 2 miles away from the initial fire. Virtually impossible to fight for these firefighters on the ground. And I'll just leave you with some words from the fire chief, Chad Augustin there. And again, launching embers as far as 2 miles away. And in his opinion, and a lot of experts' opinion, it really didn't help with more water there with the wind gusts. We're not going to stop the fires last night. So, the key takeaway is that the water should be tried to use for evacuation routes and trying to save areas that are not in the bulk of the fire, because there's virtually no structure standing in the bulk of these fires. And, there was metal melted and things like that. So there's really no way to fight the entirety of the fire. You're just trying to keep, evacuation routes open and whatnot. So I'll just leave you with those statements there. Now, anyway, as we get these offshore winds and whatnot, some of the interior areas get pretty darn right cold. And I get a lot of people asking about weather stations and which one I recommend. And the Tempest Weather System is one that I do recommend here. Let me update this, in fact. But this is Lake Tahoe right there in Truckee. I'm always kind of intrigued on how cold a Truckee gets there. Up towards I-80, there's Lake Tahoe right there. And if we take a look at one of the stations, look at some of the, relatively comfortable afternoon highs, but look at some of the overnight lows the last 2 days. Or you're getting down into the low 20s and the teens this morning. Got down towards about 11 degrees out there for Truckee, California. So again, a very fun weather station. Click on that link down below to save 10% off. Freeze warnings are out there as well. Check it out. It includes Merced and Madera. It doesn't include Bakersfield here, but this goes through Wednesday morning. Again, some very chilly conditions out there, especially interior valley areas where you are wind sheltered. Very cold. Now, critical fire conditions. I know I sound like a broken record. I've been talking about this since January 1st when I was sounding the alarms for that firestorm rolling in here. And again, we're going to be dealing with this as we go through the upcoming week. Very low relative humidities. And again, if we have new fire starts, these fires are very difficult to stop and to contain. And again, the Palisades fire going on day 5, only 11% contained. So you can imagine these fires pop up. They are very difficult to contain and fight. And we have this threat going all the way on through Tuesday and Wednesday. I'm going to show you more on that here in a moment. So it's always important, sometimes you have to take things into your own hands, especially if you're off in remote locations where there's a lot of vegetation. You should have a go bag prepared and ready to go when dangerous fire conditions exist. San Diego National Weather Service talking about the low relative humidity as we go on in through upcoming Wednesday here, going to remain very low. Again, tinderbox conditions. And this is long range spotting. This is why these embers can spread downstream. You're bringing very unstable fire conditions. It's very dry. This gets lofted up in the atmosphere. Then you get powerful winds launching these embers downstream, and you're just dropping these onto some very flammable vegetation or whatnot. And again, it just makes these fires extremely difficult to fight. So 80-meter wind speeds. This is where we are right now. We're Southern California. You can see some gusty winds down the Sacramento Valley as we go through the day today down the coast. Northeast winds for the Sierra Nevada coming across the desert areas. This is a crosswind, so watch out. You're driving high-profile vehicles. You're going to want to know about that up through Las Vegas. You're coming back and forth on the interstates there across the desert areas. And you can see that the offshore winds are going to be rolling all the way on in through tomorrow morning, quite strong. And really not much of a let up as we go on in through Tuesday morning. You know, there's probably a peak and a bump right there on Tuesday morning where the strongest winds are going to be rushing through some of the canyons and some of the higher terrain of Southern California. Again, keeping Southern California very dry. You got to remember the terrain out here across Nevada and Utah and portions of Arizona and the deserts is higher than Southern California. And it's very dry in the initial stages of the air mass. And then you bring it out and you're compressing it and drying it out even further. And by the time you get to Southern California, the moisture content is so extremely low that, yeah, you get these extreme fire dangers. And if we look at the 2-meter dew point here, you can kind of see the dry air as I just kind of scroll through the 60 hours here, just flowing off the continent at times. Extremely dry air. So hopefully I've made that clear. All right. I digress. Let's take a look at that European 12Z model run. This one is hot off the presses. The offshore winds will continue and again start to peak as you go through Monday and on in through the day Tuesday. And then we start to look off in towards the end of the week. And we still have some offshore winds as we go through Wednesday night into Thursday morning. But then we start to switch things up a little bit, which, you know, strangely enough, can actually help reignite some of the fires. Even though you're bringing in a bit more moist air, you're starting to reverse the wind direction, and all of a sudden the fire can start to, you know, take different directions than it maybe normally would. So you start to fan the flames maybe a little bit more from a different direction, and you start to spread those fires a little bit to some other areas. So just because the offshore winds end doesn't mean the fire danger necessarily comes to an end. And then we look way off into the future because there's been some interesting solutions in the European. You can see again, look at this as you go all the way on through January 20th here, another offshore wind event has been showing up in the European model. So yeah, I mean, this could be an ongoing theme here over the next couple of weeks. And again, yet another one if you go way off into Fantasyland. But let's take a look here, and I'll update this because the 12Z model is running right now. And we'll put this into motion. And again, you can see there goes that cutoff low we've been talking about. It's still going to form. It's just no help. It's just way too far out there, drifting away. It doesn't bring any precipitation. And it's almost like Mother Nature is mocking us at this point across some of the West Coast. As you see, nary a stitch of rainfall happening for California as we scroll all the way to 360 hours out. Just not a good look. I'll show you the updated drought monitor here as well for some of Southern California and the desert areas coming up in a moment. If we take a look at the GFS 12Z run, you'll see that cutoff low come out there. That is no help. It is way too far away. And then we don't really bring any precipitation again as we go through 160 hours. Now we're up over 200 hours. The GFS has been hinting at a little bit of a pattern change as we go through the 240-hour period. But again, it's not much. I mean, and it's kind of backed off here on what it was showing some previous runs. So not great news there. And I feel it with you here, you folks. You know, the channel does much better when we're getting active systems. I get a lot more views and a lot more engagement when we're getting, you know, precipitation coming up in the future and whatnot. People don't like to talk about offshore winds and dry conditions and fire weather here. So I'd much rather be talking about a rainy forecast here for California. It's just not being shown in the models. Now, if we take a look at 2,500 feet, I do want to show you some differences. We're going to scroll all the way out because I talked about the offshore winds, you know, enough, but I just want to show you the extended forecast. European brings that offshore wind event. You notice the GFS really doesn't have it. It keeps that Arctic air and the higher pressure a bit further off to the east there. So that's something, you know, kind of a silver lining as we look way off into the forecast. Yeah, we're going to skip relative humidity. You guys got the gist of that. But if we look at the 12Z total precipitation, I'm going to update that. So we have the entire run here. But look at this. Not even a stitch of precipitation as we scroll off. I mean, look at this. This is just like Mother Nature is just completely mocking the state of California. Look at this. There is barely anything that shows up through 360 hours. So The good news is we have nowhere to go but up from here, right? So let's just kind of everybody get out there and do a rain dance or whatnot or whatever you think might help, because that's kind of looking ridiculous as you look out 15 days into this morning's European model run. And of course, if you're out in the wind sheltered areas and some of the higher terrain or the valley areas and you wake up in the morning, you don't need me to tell you it's been downright chilly. And again, there's some freeze warnings out there as well. Higher terrain also. And even into Southern California, I mean, look at that. There's some 30s getting down into some of the foothill areas. So, yeah, not fun for people who have lost homes and have to stay in hotels if you're lucky, and things of that nature also. So, those chilly overnight lows. They do give away to some warmer daytime highs, but even that's going to cool down as we go through the end of the week coming up here. But still, relatively speaking, upper 50s, low 60s, mid 60s type thing. Now, taking a look at the 2-week differences here. So this is where we were with the drought monitor. Sorry, let me fix that up. And you can see we did have some moderate drought here across some of Southern California. We had some severe back across the Arizona border and some extreme out there across portions of Nevada and Arizona as well. But look at what has been introduced here over the last couple of days. We now have severe drought, including San Diego, Orange, Los Angeles County, and again, some of the desert areas, and some of that moderate drought's been extended up towards Point Conception there as well. So yeah, that's not a good look. Also, severe drought, again, introduced to Southern California. And this was issued on January 10th. So we got the above average signal there as we go through the end of January in through February here. I mean, we'll see how that turns out here, but this is the Climate Prediction Center's latest. And look at this above for Pacific Northwest and below for the Southwest here. So hopefully we can switch this up somehow. 6 to 10 day, again, this makes sense with what we were looking at with the model runs below normal here. And some Arctic air moving down, that's what could drive some of these, again, offshore wind events here, and below normal signal here for a lot of the west and a lot of the central portion of the USA. 8 to 14 days, something similar with below normal precipitation expected. And I mean, if you guys have been living across Southern California or the entire state of California for any length of time, you know how this goes, these big whiplash events. Sometimes you get a couple years of drought and followed by a couple years of wet and back and forth. So what will come next? And at some point, we'll probably be dealing with some of these fire burn scar areas, dealing with heavy precipitation and then landslide activity and things like that. So it's a never-ending battle. You can never win. There's always some kind of threat trying to get you out there, and I guess such is life. But now if we take a look at the extended forecast, let's take a look and see what's showing up. You can see the inside slider, the cutoff load there as we go through the upcoming days. Another, kind of a polar lobe taking a swing. That's kind of got an inside slider look. Another one there, some ridging. And then through the extended, maybe as we go to the end of January, maybe we can get some of this to move out a bit further west and start to incorporate some better precipitation chances into the state of California. But again, that's got an inside slider look. Another inside slider look as we go through early February. This would be a better look, but of course you're looking 840 hours out, which is basically the same as looking at a crystal ball right now. I mean, yeah, you might as well go do a tarot card reader or whatnot, because you don't put much stock in that. But at least it's some kind of signal for maybe some kind of pattern change as we go through the month of February there. But yeah, anyway, let's hope we can continue to get these fires in check out there. What else? Hope you guys are having a good day otherwise. Click like and subscribe. We'll do this all again tomorrow, and we'll take a look at the latest, and I will see you then.